entire focus is on grassroots. And this is only the singular reason, I would say, why Indian football is headed in the right direction, and I personally feel has a great future. Had we not done that, and I want to add one or two things like, which I was giving some numbers. You know about coaches. I think Baichung and Shaji mentioned earlier. How many thousands of D license coaches, C license, B license coaches now have been created in India? We hardly had anybody. So it's a whole ecosystem which has led to this change. And the hosting of the World Cup under 17 certainly also reflects the confidence of the world football body that it has in India and India's future. It's not that they give a World Cup under 17 to just anybody. After all, there is a thought process behind it. And that thought process is backed also by what work is happening on the ground.
Right. Bhaichung, I'm very interested to know your thoughts, because you briefly told us about how the grassroots structure was when you were playing or when Vijayan was playing, and now how it's changed. You yourself are very actively involved. You have your own grassroots program. Have you seen a change over the years, and how's it changed? We heard the bad things. Tell us something good that's happening.
No, I think the best thing or the good thing is the number of kids playing football now. And you can see that just not in rural areas of India, but also in metro cities. And that's a huge thing. And as I said earlier as well, as a player, when I played India under 16, we just played one tournament throughout. And in fact, IM Vijayan never played under 16 tournament. And that is the age group, under 14, under 15, under 16, where you've got to be playing, important, yes, you've got to be training under good coaches, but at the same time, you've got to be playing competitive matches as well, which had not happened. And I think now, if you look into last 2-3 years and now as well, the number of kids playing football, the number of teams actually coming out, participating in under 15 tournament, I-League, is itself 55, which we just had 10 or 12 2 years ago. So I think the good sign is the number of kids are playing, and also as President said, Mr. Patel said, that we're also focusing a lot on getting our guys trained, players, ex-players, also some players who just played state level, to get qualified license done, D license, C license, so that they are trained and they are qualified, and then they go on to train the kids in different places in India.
I'd have to agree, about 10 years ago, where I stay, I used to go down, and in the park, every kid was playing cricket. It's changed now. I actually see kids playing football, wearing their Rooney and Messi t-shirt and talking about it. So that change is there.
It is, and even you've got representatives here from Bhutan and Sri Lanka as well. You forget Brazil, England, Germany and all that. If you look at our neighbors, even looking at Nepal, today Maldives, Bhutan, at least these 3 countries, the number one sport there is football, and we've got representatives from Bhutan as well. The number of kids playing football in, Bangladesh used to be there, but now cricket is taken over. But number of kids playing football in just neighboring countries like Bhutan, Nepal and Maldives is 90%. And these countries are also really working hard to really see that. So we've got to make sure that the kids, we create that environment, and the book talks about creating environment. So we need to create that environment, we need to create that interest within the kids, and that's how I think that's the first step. And hopefully, with right kind of guidance, right kind of coaches, we will be able to spot the talent and nurture them and show them the right direction.
Okay. Viren, I'll try and get you in. Now, Viren, of course, as you know, former captain of the Indian hockey team. Because we're talking about grassroots, now you work with grassroots in all sorts of sports. But let me just talk about hockey. Harinder Singh, another former India player, former India coach, I was talking to him the other day, and his kid's really interested in football. And I said, okay, great, who teaches him? And he said, I teach him. So I said, but you've been a hockey player. He said, exactly the same. Hockey, football work the same. I mean, you've been a hockey player, is it the same? And are the same problems existing in other sports too, as we see with football, as far as grassroots is concerned?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the same with every sport in India. And as the distinguished people on the panel have rightly mentioned, two perennial problems of Indian sport are grassroots development and the quality of coaches. If these 2 problems are addressed, I think that will be the biggest leap for all Indian sport, and it's the same with all other sports. And actually, not many people might know that I'm a massive football fan, and I actually represented Mumbai in football before I represented Mumbai in hockey. And
so our angles the same when you're on the field, when you're playing hockey or football?
The angles are more or less the same. I was center half in both, so it was more or less the same. So I love football to the core, and my fondest memories of sport, which actually inspired me to go into sport, was because my dad used to take me for Rovers Cup matches at the Cooperage. And I remember when I was 7 or 8 years old, I had gone for a Momdan Sporting versus East Bengal match, and you know the fervor and passion of the Bengali supporters on those rickety old Cooperage stands. When East Bengal scored a goal, I thought the stands would actually come down with the fans jumping. So I'm very happy that Cooperage has been refurbished now, and the stands are in a much better condition. But yes, I love football, and actually an interesting problem now, hockey versus football in Mumbai. So Mumbai was traditionally known for hockey. Till the mid-90s, we have at least 4 or 5 players in the Indian team from Mumbai. It's been reduced to maybe just 1 now. But now if you see the Mumbai School Sports Association, there are just around 10 to 12 teams in inter-school playing hockey, but there are some 400 schools playing football. So that itself just goes to show the popularity of football. And I said, I love football, so I'm happy that, I'm not so happy about the hockey part, but since today is a football topic, I'm happy about the football part.
Okay, Shaji, I'll come to you. But before I ask you a question about the book, let me just tell you that it's just released, but there's already a review of the book out. Mr. Vijay Lokpalli has already written one. I had an opportunity to glance through it. He's got very high praise for you, so let me get your reaction. How does it feel?
I'm really overwhelmed, as I said, you know. And one thing, my family is finally here.
So you're happy about that?
They made it. It's really, I feel honored, you know, to see that by Vijay, and he has really given big space, and that shows, you know, football is in, you know, kind of hitting into a fourth gear, and fifth is about to hit the fifth gear. And I recently said that the day, you know, India qualifies for the World Cup, or even 1 or 2 players playing for one of the biggest clubs or in the European League, you know, everything will change in just flip of the coin. And that's very much going to happen. And if you see the trend, and the number of youth playing, number of children playing. When I go to school, 20 years back, 10 years back, it was all cricket. Now it's predominantly football. And because, you know, it suits the psychology of the kid. What I say always that, you know, football provides unlimited opportunity to try, fail, still you try. But in cricket, what happens, once you fail, you have no second opportunity. If you are out as a batsman, you have to observe the match as a spectator for the rest of maybe 5 days, maybe for, you know, 1 day, for 1 day, or those, you know, 3.5 hours. But football for a kid means you do 1,000 mistakes, but you are going to play that match till the match ends. You know, therefore, it perfectly suits the psychology of the child today. That means opportunities are unlimited in a game of football. That's the basic fundamental aspects, and that what, you know, is hooking children to football. And definitely, you know, the satellite channels have really helped, you know, in last 15 years, you know, where every household is, you know, kind of weekends are going for, you know, football matches. That's a celebration. That's a kind of party. So this is, you know, and that's what, you know, I really want to promote that. And that's what was also one of the inspiration to write this book.
Okay, just tell all the audience present here, and I'm very eager to know as well. You travel a lot. Your work is Southeast Asia, basically, but you travel a lot in all football playing countries. Tell us, when you see a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old in any other part of the world, and you see a 6 or a 7-year-old playing in India, is there any difference?
I'm fortunate, to travel from Afghanistan to Brazil to Chile to Mexico to, name it, except 2 continents. I've covered 4 continents. But then I would say, the kids in India or in South Asia are no different from those European kids. But what difference is, when after a certain age, the opportunities are less for our kids to grow. Because it's, like a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old, our kids might be more hungry, more passionate and more, devoted. But then, the structure and the system kind of lets us down. But then, it is not that it's like in South America, there is no, still the structure is not there, but still the culture, like what is football in South America is, cricket in India, and that's, structureless, but the culture is full. But if we can, that's already happening. We are putting the structure, we are putting the processes, we are developing the coaches, we are creating opportunities, and the top-down approach is also happening, where the league is getting visible, competitive, and that's how the engagement opportunities will grow.
Okay, Baichung, he says that a 6-year-old is pretty much the same anywhere in the world. So probably the problem was there when, the grassroots development starts for a kid. That was the problem probably we saw in India. But now it's been very heartening, at least for me as a football fan, to see how the under-17 team is performing, looking ahead to the under-17 World Cup. You saw them play. Is that just a sign of what can be done with a bunch of Indian footballers if you provide them with the right coaching?
No, I think it's just the start for us, and we saw them, play against Brazilian team, under-17 Brazil side. Obviously, Brazilians were better team, but some of the players that Indian players played were equally as good as some of the Brazilian players. So I think it's just the start, and we need to really, if Indian football has to change, it has to be a long-term development plan. It can't, under-17, as I said, is the start. And hopefully, if we can focus more with the number of teams now increasing and creating that environment, just not having an I-League under 15, but also we've got to focus on a lot of the state associations to really work. And we discuss every time in Federation that every time we have under 16 national tournaments, and we spend quite a lot of money organizing under 16 nationals, and the state doesn't send the best under 16 kids for that tournament, it's a big waste of money for Federation hosting that tournament.
Why do you think that happens?
Because a lot of the states will have to make sure that we are trying to, work with the state to make sure that, help them, give them support in terms of technical or other fields as well. So if we need more dedicated as well in state association to come forward, because when you're sending an under 16 or under 19 or women's team, you need to try and select the best of that age group from your state. A lot of that happens only, I've experienced that as well. If today, say, a team from Bengal has to come, maybe a team from just Calcutta is, few teams from Calcutta would be selected, few boys from Calcutta, and they send it. A team from Sikkim, in Gangtok, that area. So it's very important that we need to really spot. And that was one of the reasons why, in fact, when you selected under-17 World Cup this year, we sent our coach Nikolai Adam to a lot of these places in different states, because we are not getting the best players, under 16 best players from state, and the quality of the players that came and played, it was not at all right. And from that spotting of sending Nikolai to different state and spotting the talent, we've got half the squad of under 17 today is from where Nikolai has gone, visited with the scout team, and that's how we spotted, and we've got the best players.
Okay, Mr. Patel, the other thing that we've seen with the under-17 team, and it's doing very well, like you said, competing with the likes of Brazil, was they got a lot of foreign exposure as well. They went on a couple of trips. This was one thing that had been lacking in Indian football. Has there been a conscious effort there?
Well, I think most certainly the idea was not only, as Bhaichung said, to scout the talent from across the country, even in the smallest of places, because we could not just rely only on the existing system to give us the best of our youngsters. So that was done. And then the second part is to get the best coaches and the best of facilities, and then the best of exposure. At the end of the day, when you play, rub shoulders with the best in the world, obviously there's going to be some rub-on effect. And this is an age when they are developing, so it's easier for them to adapt and change their skills. And the second, I want to only mention 2 or 3 things for everybody to understand about Indian football. Is, of course, what we're just talking about, to catch them young and then they're really going to be good. Second is, you see, Baichung is a player. I have played at the college level, but he's certainly played football all his life, so he knows that an average footballer in the world in a good competitive game would be running 12, 13 kilometers and would be at his optimum, hopefully all the 90 minutes. Our players certainly would not have that optimum level of performance for the full 90 minutes. So somewhere down the line, that is something very important. When you catch them young, develop them, all these stalwarts, they unfortunately never had any formal coaching, virtually no. It's just their own passion and the culture and whatever the best they could throw up, they did, including Baichung. So when you catch them young, develop them, you are also developing and conditioning their physical abilities. So that is, I think, something which is very important. And the third thing which probably gets ignored is that until 5-7 years ago, not even 5-7, 3-4 years back, where was the infrastructure in India? All our league matches, everybody says league was, I-League is this, I-League is that. How can the I-League have developed when all your matches were being played at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Who will go to the ground at 3 o'clock to watch a game, and who will watch it even if it is televised on television? You had no advantage both ways. Now all your games virtually are under floodlights, are being televised. So there is opportunity for people to go to the stadium. Now, when people talk of ISL clubs and the I-League clubs, now Bengaluru is a case of an I-League club. It is not an ISL club. See the fan following. You had actually 500 people from Bangalore who paid and went to Doha to watch the game. I mean, it's not a small, it may be a small number, but it's a beginning. What a fantastic beginning for Indian football, for an I-League club. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that all these things which were not there earlier ultimately will go a long way to promote the game and to build that footballing culture, which is very important.
Okay, I-League, ISL is a great debate. We'll leave it for another day. But I'll come to you, if I could call you Debu.
No, ISL, I-League is not a debate. Both are products of All India Football Federation. So don't think there is some debate. It is we who have set the cat amongst the pigeons, because without disruption, there would never be a solution to Indian football's future.
Absolutely.
We have created a disruptor.
I guess everyone wants development of Indian football, however it comes. To you, we see corporates being associated with sport right at the top level, at the international level. But you, as a corporate entity, are you trying to look at grassroots too?
It's a great question, Nikhil. First of all, you talked about Rooney and Messi t-shirts. I'm not sure whether that's a good idea. I grew up, and I'll give my age away, I grew up having a number 15 Shurojit Sengupta t-shirt. I hope in the future we'll have t-shirts with Indian players' names on the back, which are being worn by the Indian kids versus having a Rooney and a Messi. But I think the content will get there. Coming to your issue around sponsorships, and I've had the privilege of working very closely with Mr. Patel, Kushal, the rest of the federation. There are 2 ways you can view sponsorships. One is you get into a sport which is doing brilliantly and use that sport to convey your brand message. That happens all the time. Cricket is a great example. If I tell you the list of sponsors in cricket 5 years back, they're very different from what they are today. Because everybody wants to get a quick scale up of their brand, gets in, gets out. The other kind of sponsorship is a true partnership, which I believe Coca-Cola has for sport, and especially football. We have done the under 16 or the under 15, depending on how you position that, for the last 8 years. For the last 8 years, we've been partners of the All India Football Federation for the under 15 grassroots tournament. But there are challenges. The challenges are at 2 levels. One is infrastructure, which you talked about. And infrastructure is the ecosystem. It is not just getting the fields, getting the coaches. It's also, when I talk to the parents, they are very scared about injuries. I'm an orthopedic surgeon's son. So I've grown up with football in the household. In fact, Bhaichung has been my father's patient for many years. And there is an interesting anecdote I must tell you. There is a huge game that people talk about in which East Bengal beat Mohun Bagan 4-1. And Baichung scored a hat-trick. That was the semi-finals of a Federation Cup. Baichung scored a hat-trick. But what people forget is for the finals, the gentleman there scored 2 goals and Salgaonkar beat East Bengal 2-1. And I have to apologize to Baichung because my father fixed Bruno Coutinho so that he could play the game. So the reality is when I talk to parents, they say, yes, I would like my child to play football, but if they get injured, what happens? So the infrastructure piece is the full ecosystem. We can fix the playing fields, we can fix the coaches, but can we get the infrastructure piece sorted out? The second thing is also imagination, heroes. Today, cricket has heroes. I do not believe cricket is going to get smaller. In my mind, football has to get bigger.
Sure.
And the only way we can get bigger is to do well at 2 levels. Mr. Patel talked about JSW Bangalore. It's a great team. It's done brilliantly. We lost the game by a whisker. But that national team also needs to do well. Once the national team starts doing well, you get further inspiration. So long answer to a short question. We have been with the AIFF for the last 8 years. I believe football is an idea whose time has come. As a sponsor, we will stay invested. We have stayed the course, we will stay the course. And in corporate, we talk about hockey stick. You keep investing in a business for many years, suddenly there is an inflection point. And I believe in India, football is at that inflection point. And that inflection point in the next 2 to 3 years, an under-17 World Cup could be a great inflection point. And it takes football into orbit. But the infrastructure piece, if we do not fix, we'll still have problems. We still have problems with trying to, when we do the tournament, and the State Football Association, Baichung touched upon that. It's very difficult for us to keep track of the schools which played. Suppose one guy comes in, has a brilliant performance, because we don't have the tracking mechanism, we are not able to go back to him and figure out, I mean, there could be a Lionel Messi somewhere in Bengal or a Goa. We've just been not able to track him out. So tracking becomes very, very important. But at a holistic level, as a sponsor, I believe that we are true partners to the All India Football Federation. Football is an idea whose time has come. And it's important for the entire ecosystem of sponsors to stay invested behind the sport, because it's the easiest sport to play. You need a ball, and in most of the villages in this country, you need 2 pairs of boots. That's your goalposts. You put two boots, that's your goalpost, and you need a ball, and you can play the game. So we are very bullish about Indian football. And the recent results, we are working with the AIFF to send the team to Brazil, the under-16 team. We believe, Bobby Jones used to say that golf is not played on an 18-hole course. It's played here. It's a 4-inch space that you have because it's played in the mind. So more and more when these guys play strong opponents, the mind space will become stronger and will become better at the sport.
Okay, Viren, I'll get you because we're talking about corporates in your second avatar after a player, you're chasing corporates. Tell us, like, he's bullish about football, they've decided to be there for the long haul, but what are the kind of problems you face? And I'm not talking about, marketing someone like a Sindhu, you manage her interests as well, but I'm talking about a youngster. You look after a lot of youngsters. If you were to discover one, what are the problems that you face when you go to a sponsor or a corporate entity? Don't be scared, he's sitting to your right.
There are still huge challenges, and so in a way you could say a lot of the big corporates in India are supporting Olympic Gold Quest as well, which supports a lot of our budding young Olympic talent. But at the same time, I think we're just scratching the surface. I think corporate India could do much more, but having said that, corporate India has a very genuine and fair concern that we as federations, we as people who are running and managing sport have to do also much more in terms of transparency, in terms of accountability, in terms of better performance, in terms of, I think, just overall professionalism. If you ask me, is Indian sport professional today? I think far from it. We have a long way to go. I think sports like football are in the right direction. I think Hockey India is doing a great job in the last 5 years. The best example is you see the amount of investment they have made in women's hockey. And today the results are showing in terms of the Indian women's team has qualified for the Olympics after 36 years. The Indian women's team has won the Asian Champions Trophy for the first time ever. So you need to invest into the sport and you will see the results later on. So if you ask me, is it easy to get sponsorship in Indian sport? The answer is no, it is not difficult. We got to go and convince corporates that, that we are going to be professional. Can we go and look them into the eye and say, yes, we are going to meet our side of the bargain? And once we get that done, once we cross that line and become super professional, I think that will be the point where a sponsorship will flow much more into Indian sport, and from then on we can really take off into orbit. But professionalism in everything we do is the bottom line, and for that we need to ensure that we get the best people involved in sport, not just in terms of passion, but also in terms of knowledge. If the best guys from the IITs and the IMs go to Coca-Cola and work for them, we also need to be making our industry mature enough to absorb them into the AIFF and to Hockey India and to Olympic Gold Quest. Only then will Indian sport.